Philip J. Pierre says that all state funds should go into the consolidated fund. Here are some examples of Philip J. Pierre's hypocrisy. As we speak, work on the rehabilitation of the Millennium Highway is ongoing. This project is financed by the Caribbean Development Bank. CDB pays the contractor for the Millennium Highway directly. The funds do not go into the consolidated fund. Philip J. Pierre also happens to be the current chairman of CDB. Why aren't the funds going into the consolidated fund if the practice is so unusual as he makes it out to be? Funds from St. Lucia's Citizenship by Investment program also do not go into the consolidated fund.
Prime Minister Philip J. Pierre claims that no other CARICOM countries have received funds from Saudi Arabia and that the $75 million United States dollars loan that he has taken for St. Jude was because of his government's hard work. Here is the truth. Antigua has received $80 million US, Guyana has received $150 million US, Grenada has received $100 million US, Belize has received $77 million US, Bahamas has received $12 million US, and St. Vincent received $10 million. We can't trust Pierre.
Greetings, fellow St. Lucians. I regret that I am unable to attend and contribute to the House sitting on Tuesday, September 12, 2023, as I had pre-arranged to attend to some personal matters overseas. However, down for debate, amongst others, is the government seeking approval to borrow US $75 million, a little over EC $200 million. And that is to complete. We recognize correspondence from the then PS in the Ministry of Economic Development to the then Prime Minister, Dr. Kenny Anthony, indicating that to complete St. Jude Hospital would cost in the region of EC $100 million. This figure did not factor the several problems and inadequacies already identified. The UWP government thought it necessary then to have a professional assessment done and contracted FDL Consult Inc. to provide a technical audit on the existing reconstruction project. The SLP government, on coming into power, chose to ignore this comprehensive 201-page report, but chose to focus on 2 lines. And I quote, "However, we do see a great value present in the works completed to date and believe the project is salvageable and could be converted in a facility that can properly serve the needs of St. Lucia." Unquote. Based on the figure of the loan before us, we can now better appreciate the cost of salvaging the project for the purpose intended. The UWP should feel vindicated despite the number of times our concerns were downplayed with facetious, tongue-in-cheek comments that some chemical and buckets of paint was all that was needed to move into the facility. We will also remember the utterances by certain professionals that anywhere between $5 and $10 million would complete the works. For purposes of transparency, I wish to quote the entire paragraph the 2 lines were extracted from. And I quote, "Consistently, the design and planning of the building that make up this facility have been observed to omit adequate spaces for the running, but more importantly, accessing of services within the building. In hospitals, it is important that building services, equipment, be accessible for maintenance without compromising the sanitary and functional roles of each unit as much as possible. The issues highlighted are significant in nature. However, we do see a great value present in the works completed to date and believe the project is salvageable and could be converted into a facility that can properly serve the needs of St. Lucia. as St. Jude's Hospital is designated a primary healthcare facility with one of its primary roles to ensure effective, acute, and referral services in the south of the island with future potential for growth and development. The visual component of the design does little for the potential that the history and nostalgia of the site dictates. More could be done to uplift the image and swell the hearts of all those that have contributed to a facility held in such high esteem by the people of St. Lucia." Unquote. The audit went further to highlight significant hazards including, but not limited to, health, fire, and there were several fire hazards quoted, and hurricane. Armed with this credible information, the then government of Honorable Alan Chastney decided it would be more prudent and money better spent to build a brand new, resilient, and futuristic structure, keeping with the 2007-2008 National Vision Plan aimed at creating St. Jude Hospital into a regional hospital complex and to develop and improve general health care and support services for the medical training schools expected to be attracted to the south of the island. St. Jude's Hospital, I believe, will be celebrating 57 years this month. The age of the structure was also factored in the expansion plans. I recall at one of our sittings under this administration, I indicated to the PM that the new structure does not belong to any party, and he would be praised for completing it. It would also make the hundreds of individuals, well-wishers, including students, who donated just over $2 million, extremely proud to be able to say, "I was a part of this." Honorable Alan Chastney, I'm sure, will have a challenge in making his contribution come Tuesday because of the usual interruptions. But I'm putting it to St. Lucians to make your contributions on the future of our hospital in the south. Let us rise from the petty politics and speak to what we believe is better for our nation. Maybe the Prime Minister and his cabinet will listen. I thank you for listening to me, and may our sweet St. Lucia remain blessed. Good day.
Good morning to ladies and gentlemen of the media. Good morning to my colleagues, and good morning to those listening to us live on social media. I get a feeling that it might be a little too late to say Happy New Year to you, although I'm seeing you for the first time. But let me take the opportunity to wish you all the best for 2024. To you, the members of the media, and to those listening, I hope we continue to have a cordial and fruitful relationship as we did in 2023. This morning's press conference, I have with me Senator Harold Stanislaus, who will be speaking on a matter related to victimization. And we also have the party chairman, who will be dealing with a number of topics, including the crime situation in St. Lucia. For my part, I will touch on the tax administrative bill that is in circulation currently, the draft circulation. But let me begin by saying that the United Workers' Party wishes to be very emphatic, wishes to make it very clear that there are some provisions in the draft of the tax administration bill that is in circulation for consultation that we absolutely do not support. Our position is very definitive in that we do not support any tax legislation, or any legislation for that matter, that will disadvantage the citizens of St. Lucia, that is oppressive, and that will be a liability, whether to business people or private citizens. And we see some draconian provisions in the legislation that we will not support. But of course, in due course, we will make our recommendations official and submit them to the Prime Minister, because as an opposition, we expect to be, and we will be part of the consultative process. And we are hoping that our recommendations will not be treated as usual, as it has been done in the past by the Prime Minister and by his own admission, for him to simply throw it in the bin. Of course, some of what he has thrown in the bin, we have seen him go back to the bin, and it has been forced to implement, such as, when it comes to crime, the K9 unit. That, if you reflect and you review our recommendations on crime, you will realize that was one of the recommendations that we made, that the K9 unit be reinstated. But back to the tax administrative bill, we are saying that this is a national issue, and we call on the Prime Minister to resist the temptation to continuously make national issues that are of importance for the well-being of our country and our people, to descend into making them partisan and political. It is time that we move away from the blame game and accept our responsibilities, and the Prime Minister will be well advised to do so. To suggest that it was the United Workers' Party that is responsible for the current draft that is in circulation is erroneous. If you observe the date on the draft, it is clear that it was done in 2022, during which time the United Workers' Party had demitted office. And to suggest that the Prime Minister has not seen, or the Cabinet does not know of, or have not seen the provisions in that draft, again is misleading. I would like to suggest to you that the process that he described, in the process that he described, he omitted one step. Naturally, the technocrats of the Ministry of Finance, Inland Revenue Department, would have submitted some recommendations to the Minister of Finance, who, by the way, is the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister, in turn, would forward those recommendations to the AG's office, the Attorney General's office, who in turn would forward those recommendations to his drafting department for the draftsmen, legal draftsmen and women in that department to do the drafting of the legislation that is now in circulation. Of course, we welcome the idea of a consultation on the legislation so that St. Lucians can have an opportunity to air their views, and we as an opposition who take our responsibility seriously will ensure that, as we have been doing, peruse with a fine-tooth comb the draft and ensure that it is in the best interest of St. Lucians. And so we want to state that, unlike the Prime Minister, we are not going to engage in the blame game. We ask that he desist from doing so, because this is too important an issue for us to politicize it and make it partisan. We want the best tax legislation for St. Lucians, and we recognize and understand that if we, or when we become government, these are the same legislations that will be guided by and that will be implemented by our government for the people of St. Lucia. So again, there are some draconian provisions in the legislation, such as the high penalties for non-payment, such as the travel restrictions that are being proposed, and the forfeiture or seizure of property and the way that it is being proposed. We do not support those provisions, and we will be making our recommendations as to what we think is more just, more of a fair nature, and more palatable that St. Lucians can abide by. Because while we want to encourage St. Lucians to be compliant when it comes to payment of taxes, we know that often, it is because some of our citizens are not in a position to make the payments. That is why they don't. And you cannot compound their situation, but we want to have legislation that will work with them to make them become compliant and to conform to the requirements of the legislation. I will stop at this point, and later on we'll ask questions if you wish. But when we get to the question and answer section, I would ask that you identify your media house, and if you can ask your question, that it can come through the system, because some of our listeners and viewers are complaining that they do not hear the question, they only hear the answers. And at this point, I would like to hand over to my colleague, Senator Harold Stanislaus, the former parliamentarian for Soufriere and former Minister of Planning.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mutut, and let me say a pleasant good morning to all St. Lucians here and abroad, especially our diasporas, our media colleagues in here today. A special good morning. And thank you for the opportunity to speak on matters of concern as it relates to the constituency of Soufriere Fons and Jacques as a former parliamentary representative. Before I do, please allow me to wish all St. Lucians the very best for 2024. We know that it is a challenging period for our people with the seemingly never-ending impact of inflation, the high cost of fuel prices, the dreaded 2.5% levy imposed, and we continue to grapple with challenges of basic needs such as sugar. Ladies and gentlemen, there are many issues that concerns me greatly with the constituency of Soufriere Fons and Jacques. It may take me an entire day to list the litany of transgressions the people of Soufriere Fons and Jacques are experiencing by this administration. Let me start with a matter of great concern as it relates to the Soufriere Foundation. As you know, the SRDF is a not-for-profit entity established to promote, encourage, support, facilitate, and coordinate local development in Soufriere. Since the St. Lucia Labour Party took office in 2021, we have seen the consistent pattern of layoffs and subsequent terminations of employees at the SRDF at an unforgiving scale. To date, almost 50 employees have been sent home, and most recently, just last Friday, 19th January, another 5 more people from Soufriere were laid off by the cold-hearted executive chairman of the Soufriere Foundation. This is hurting our town and households. At a time when the tourism industry is at its peak, almost 80% of tourists who come to St. Lucia visit Soufriere, the sites which are managed, operated, and maintained by the Soufriere Foundation. And the executive chairman and the board of directors would lay off tour guides in January, immediately after Christmas, a month that we all know from a financial point of view is the most challenging month for an indefinite period of time, is unconscionable. Some of those recently terminated have served the organization for over 27 years, ladies and gentlemen. Imagine an individual, a lady, who have given 27 years of tour guiding service to an organization at the park and getting a call that there is an urgent meeting at the office to come down. And when you get to the office, you get a letter laying you off indefinitely with no payment, no severance, nothing. And you're just out there in the wilderness indefinitely with no time frame for your laying off. Some of those who were laid off last Friday, they've been serving the organization for over 10 years. 10 years. These are experienced tour guides. They are also single mothers. They are also the only breadwinners in their households. And they were just sent home in the peak of the tourism season, ladies and gentlemen. And we can remember very clearly that back in 2021, during the election campaign, my opponent had a telephone to raise funds for single mothers. But today, in the peak of the winter season, single mothers have been sent home. Also, we have to note that those tour guides are trained in speaking and giving out the tours in other languages. They are bilingual. The foundation expended monies to train the guides in French, in Spanish, and in German. And we have all those nationalities flocking to our shores, whether it is by cruise ships, by yachts, by power boats, or as stay-over tourists at the hotels. And today, they have been sent home in the peak season. And the question is why, ladies and gentlemen? Why at this time of the year? At this time of the winter season? I have copies of the letters, and when I review the language in the letters being issued, I am very concerned about the apparent motive. Please allow me to quote the content of the letter issued last Friday to the layoff staff members. I quote, "The Soufriere Regional Development Foundation wishes to undertake a manpower need and assessment of the various agencies and departments within the institution. This is necessary if we are to truly determine the levels of efficiency, productivity, and attributes to each department. To successfully carry out this mandate, we will need to streamline and reassess the manpower and human resource at the foundation," end of quote. No time frame as to whether the layoff is for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, 2 months, 3 months. Open-ended. What baffles me, ladies and gentlemen, is why are the employees being sent home to undertake your assessment? Wouldn't it be prudent to undertake the analysis before you take the necessary action? Is this an excuse to terminate the employees? It is important to note that during the impact of the global pandemic of COVID-19, which greatly hampered the SRDF, considering it is tourism-based, not a single staff member was laid off at the foundation. Not a single one was laid off. It is also important to note, ladies and gentlemen, that during the 2016 to 2021 period, the Soufriere Foundation employed over 70 persons, provided full-time sustainable jobs for over 70 persons. When we came into office in 2016, there was approximately 144 employees. When we demitted office in 2021, there was over 206 employees. Not one person was fired during that time or laid off, even during the hardest times of COVID. Today, while the Minister of Tourism is gloating over what he refers to as great tourism numbers of cruise ship calls into Castries and Soufriere and stay-over arrivals, the SRDF is callously sending the single mothers of Soufriere into the ranks of the unemployed. What's this happening in all of this is that the persons being laid off are perceived to be supporters of the United Workers' Party. And I was hoping that this wouldn't be the case, but it appears very glaring when there is the constant statement coming from the chairman, the executive chairman of the foundation, that I know you are not one of us. on a weekly basis, those words are uttered to many of the staff. I know you are not one of us. Unfortunately, whilst targeted persons have been terminated, there is the influx of immediate replacements by open supporters of the St. Lucia Labour Party. In April of last year, a cashier at the Sulphur Springs Park was laid off under the very same circumstance, and she was replaced the following day at 6 a.m. in the morning by a well-known supporter of the St. Lucia Labour Party. Is that fair? Is that just? Is that conscionable? My fellow St. Lucians, perhaps staff members of the SRDF were already being forewarned by Mr. Harold Dalson on the 2021 political platform when he told them that elections have consequences. These were his words. Elections have consequences. My fellow St. Lucians, when you look at what's happening here, this is typical and the usual treachery of the St. Lucia Labour Party. If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it is a duck. This is political victimization, and the victims are the people of Soufriere from St. Jacques. Whilst they are placing employees on the breadline with the claim of determining efficiency, we see the barrage of wastage from the management of the organization. And let me name a few. One, with the cost of fuel and replacement parts so high, with the dreaded 2.5% on parts and maintenance of vehicles, why is the organization's vehicle, the sole vehicle of the organization, being driven up and down to Cap Estate on a daily basis by the executive chairman, even when the chairman, this executive chairman, has a traveling allowance and many other vehicles at his disposal? The organization's vehicle has become his personal toy, whilst organization operations are delayed and affected. Two, during my tenure, I initiated an events committee where persons served voluntarily. But why now? Someone who is gainfully employed in the public service is being rewarded with a check of $10,000 for serving on a voluntary events organization to organize 2 events last year, Carnival and Jazz. For decades, no one who served in this capacity or any voluntary capacity in Soufriere on any organization has ever gotten a cent for their volunteerism. What is the status of the $10,000, Mr. Executive Chairman, which vanished from Group Eton Trail Office? What is the result of this investigation? Why are the employees' uniforms not been granted as per the collective agreement? Ladies and gentlemen, my people of Soufriere from St. Jacques, I call on our parliamentary representative, Honorable Emma Hippolyte, and I'm asking her this morning whether she instructed the firing of the 50 persons from the Soufriere Foundation to make room for her supporters. We want to know whether the instructions came from her or whether the executive chairman is single-handedly taking on those decisions. Two, I am asking Honorable Hippolyte whether what is now transpiring at the Soufriere Foundation terminated or laid off, which includes members of staff from the Group Eton Nature Trail at Fonjalib. We want answers to those questions. I am asking the parliamentary representative, and by extension the Prime Minister, whether the SRDF was renamed the Ernest Auger Foundation. Is it the Ernest Auger Foundation or the Soufriere Regional Development Foundation? Because Mr. Auger was appointed as chairman in 2021. He subsequently became executive chairman. He is now also the CEO, the chief executive officer. He is also the Chief Financial Officer. He is also the Human Resource Manager. He is also the Operations Manager. And all those positions existed before. Upon him taking the position of chairman, all those individuals were sent home. And he now single-handedly handles all those 5 or 6 positions. So we have every reason to ask whether this is the Ernest Auger Foundation or whether this is the Soufriere Regional Development Foundation. And the Prime Minister needs to answer those questions to the people of Soufriere Fon Saint-Jacques, as well as the parliamentary representative. Is this endorsed, ladies and gentlemen, by the Prime Minister, who is responsible for the appointment of the Board of Directors? And speaking of the Board of Directors, I am asking the 7 directors who are members of the board whether they are in agreement with the firing of almost 50 Soufrierians under the guise of manpower needs. Is it also true that the callous treatment of the staff by the executive chairman caused the resignation of a board of directors last year? Once again, we are seeing the ugly and despicable facade of labor politics in full display in the daily operations of the foundation. A political line has been drawn in the sand. We are witnessing the abuse of political power and influence. Political victimization and staff demoralization has become apparent and institutionalized. What is happening now, ladies and gentlemen, my fellow Soufrierians, is the philosophy of the SLP's affirmative action doctrine at full play once again. Affirmative action to get rid of all United Workers' Party perceived supporters and replace them with St. Lucia Labour Party supporters and members. The executive chairman, Mr. Ernest Auger, you are a man from Soufriere. You were born, you were raised in Soufriere. The many persons whom you, as the executive chairman, have placed on the breadline today, those 50 persons, Mr. Auger, whom you have terminated, you taught some of the parents at school in Soufriere, at the Soufriere Junior Secondary School. Some of those parents, Mr. Auger, supported you when you placed yourself as a candidate for the PLP in Soufriere. They supported you. And I have to ask you, how are you able to sleep at night, knowing that you have placed 50 persons on the breadline because of their perceived political affiliation? Where is your compassion? Where is your love? Where is your humility for the beloved people of Soufriere? Where is it? I am making, ladies and gentlemen, a clarion call to the government, particularly the Prime Minister and the parliamentary representative. And this call is on behalf of the people of Soufriere Fon Saint-Jacques to bring an end to this spiteful and unjust behavior taking place at the Soufriere Regional Development Foundation. And this morning, I am demanding the immediate resignation of the executive chairman of the Soufriere Regional Development Foundation. If he refuses to resign, I am calling on the Prime Minister to remove him from the board of directors of the foundation. And Honorable Emma Hippolyte, when you campaigned, you promised to be the parliamentary representative of all the people of Soufriere Fon Saint-Jacques. Red, yellow, blue, black and white. And if you are true to your words, if you're committed to those words, do what is right for Soufriere, do what is right for the future of our constituency, and immediately remove Mr. Ernest Ogier as the Executive Chairman of the Soufriere Regional Development Foundation. I thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we've just heard from Senator Harold Stanislaus, who spoke on a matter that is ongoing in Soufriere and the actions of the Labour government with regards to the way St. Lucians are treated. I will now call on Party Chairman, Mr. Terrell Prudent, who will address you.
To start off with, I want to say Happy New Year to our professional media specialists here today, and to the people of St. Lucia at great length. I want to also say Happy New Year to those in the diaspora, those who have continued to support the United Workers' Party, those who have continued to ensure that the message of truth that the United Workers' Party have advocated over the years continues into the new year, which is 2024. This morning I won't be as lengthy as the other speakers. In the case of Senator Harold Stanislaus, it was important that he elaborate on what is happening in his community and the victimization that continues by this present parliamentary representative, the CEO or guy, the chairman, and the government on the whole. But for me, I want to talk about crime. I want to talk about what is happening here in this country. And it is unfortunate that we have ushered the new year with at least 7 murders within 1 month, and the month is not even finished as yet. And I'm saying that this crime phenomenon in this country has made our people anxious and afraid. Families are feeling the instability that arises out of crime. And when you can feel that you are not safe in your homes, when you can feel that you are not safe on the streets of this country, it begs the question, where is the Minister of National Security? Where is the Prime Minister, who is that person? And where is that government? Folks, mothers are very, very nervous here in this country. Families are nervous. And it hits to the core of the most productive sector, which is young people between the ages of 16 and 35. So if we are going to eradicate an entire generation, where is the next generation of St. Lucians coming from to be able to produce things for this country, to be able to form the next government of this country, to become the next pastors in this country? I'm telling you, we are in serious trouble here in St. Lucia. We know very well that foreign governments have already issued warnings to their citizens about St. Lucia, that when they traverse and walk the streets of our nation, that they should be very, very careful. It's not my word. You can go to the State Department's warnings and the periodic warnings to the citizens who are traveling abroad and see it. So tell me, how can this country be proud of itself when nations that we depend on in terms of tourism are saying to their people, be very careful, when you're in St. Lucia. Security costs for local business have gone up because they themselves have to worry about securing their own business. And in an economy that is not yielding much profit for those business people or persons, explain to me and explain to the average businessman in St. Lucia where they are getting this money to continue to secure their businesses that are being vandalized, the businesses that are constantly they're stealing from those people, constantly feeling a sense of fear. Folks, this country is unsettling. Our nation, we are losing this nation bit by bit. And so, if this continues to persist, where you have a clueless government that seems clearly overwhelmed with the management of crime, they have no direction, no plan or strategy to fight this cancer which is constantly eating at the fabric of St. Lucian society. Our Prime Minister, the only thing he can say to you every time that a child or fellow St. Lucian is murdered is that, I don't know. I have no idea. My father was the police, not me. But for heaven's sakes, after close to 3 years as National Security Minister, if your father was the one who had all the knowledge, you should pass on that portfolio to someone who is better able to take care of the people of St. Lucia and offer them security. This is crazy. And the thing about it is, he thinks it's a joke. Every time you want to talk about serious things, this man is constantly laughing in the faces of the average citizen of this country. And I am saying to him, resign. Resign. You have to resign, Mr. Prime Minister, because you've lost it. You've lost the essence of what it means to be a leader in this country. You've lost the essence of being able to provide directives to the police force. Because remember, you're the one in charge. You're the one who ran that show. And the police officers and the police department must look to you for guidance. And if you cannot provide that guidance and that professional approach to managing crime, I think it's the right time to demit office. Honestly, I am asking and I'm hoping in the interest of our country that you do so. You have leading members of cabinet living lawless lives, advocating lawlessness, and yet still not a word comes from anybody within the ranks of the St. Lucia Labour Party to say that enough is enough. And all you do is boast about giving vehicles to police. You know, the simplicity, the simplest thing that you do, giving vehicles. Vehicles don't solve crime. Strategy solves crime. Directives to the police is what will solve crime. And you can talk and boast and give them 100 vehicles if you want to. And there's no directives, no leadership. We are in trouble in this country. The time has come for more inspired leadership that will harness the best talents in our country. And it is clear that this Prime Minister and this government cannot provide us with the level of leadership, inspired leadership, leadership of inspiration. You listen to the man, he can't even inspire himself. Can't even inspire himself. And if you can't inspire yourself, you cannot inspire young people who are looking at you as Prime Minister of this country. It requires leadership that can deal with people, leadership that can actually lead, not a show, which is what is going on there with you. It's a show. And let's think seriously. We need to be able to combine law enforcement with strategic social interventions to show strength to those bent on committing crime here in this country. And unless our government can inspire our police officers to do that, we will always have this thing on an upward trajectory where tomorrow you hear of another murder, which is so very bad for our country. Folks, I have to say the United Workers' Party, we are prepared and ready to work with this government. And since crime is a national issue, I want to say to Philippe and his government, it is time to include the ideas of the United Workers' Party. It is time to prepare to work with the United Workers' Party to be able to manage crime. We will never solve crime totally here in this country, but we must find a way to manage crime so that the economy can start to grow, so that students can feel safe at school, so that parents cannot have to worry when the kids leave home, they may never come back. And I hope they heed our message as the United Workers' Party, because it's not about the Spider, it's not about Herod, it's not about me, it's not about Alan, it's not about any of us. And likewise, it's not about Philippe Pierre and the St. Lucia Labour Party, it's about St. Lucia. And if our plans are to put St. Lucia first, let us do the right things by inspiring a whole generation of St. Lucians to think of life, to think of how precious life is, and why it's important that they stay around long enough to continue having a nation in this country. Because if every one of them are going to be dead before that period, then we run amok in this country, and the security and future of this country is completely doomed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Party Chairman Darrell Prudent. I would like to invite questions from the media right now. As indicated earlier, would you please identify yourself and your media house, and could you please attempt to have your question come through the system so that our listeners can follow better and contextualize the responses having heard the questions. Yes.
Going back to the tax administration procedures bill, isn't it true that the country has for a long time had a tax collection problem when it comes to big companies collecting taxes, PAYE from employees, VAT, and remitting it to the government?
Yes, well, we have had a history where, in terms of tax compliance in St. Lucia, it has not been at its optimum, and it has been a concern of successive governments. And yes, there is a need to do better. And of course, when it comes to corporate tax, as you indicated, there lies a problem as well. And so, if the government is going to provide incentives, make investments, and so on, we are hoping that the due and just returns come to the government for the benefit of the people. And we know that hardly anyone likes to pay taxes, but I think in a civilized, modern, developed democratic society, we understand the need for paying taxes. At the same time, we are saying as a responsible opposition, while we understand the need for taxes, we do not want to bleed our people through their noses with taxes. We do not want to adopt a policy, a country where the sole source of generating revenue seems to be taxing our people. And it can be counterproductive to the economy if the people are overtaxed. And at the same time, we want to create an environment for investment, for economic growth, and individual development, so that people can not only thrive, but experience success and progress, while the government itself finds the necessary revenue that it needs to do the things that it should in terms of social programs and the infrastructural development and so on.
Okay. Follow-up. So, but the Prime Minister says that the penal provisions outlined in the tax procedures and tax administration and procedure bill come from 12 tax laws that are already in existence in St. Lucia. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, of course, we have tax laws governing the various pieces of legislation to deal with VAT, to deal with income tax, to deal with excise tax, to deal with property tax and what have you. Along with all of this legislation, you would have what is the penalty should individuals not comply and not pay their taxes. So in harmonizing the tax laws and bringing it all into one piece of legislation, not only the provisions have to be looked at, but the penalties have to be looked at as well. And where they are draconian, they have to be omitted, deleted, removed. If they are fair, they are just, they have to be retained. And what is perhaps going to create a more equitable, more just situation has to be added. That is, to my mind, what has to be done, and that is the approach that the United Workers' Party is looking at. And so, at the end of the day, there were some draconian pieces of legislation that were in place in the past that were removed, such as the restriction on travel for people who are away. There is a recommendation in this draft that will be reinstated. We do not support this. We vehemently oppose this. And we are saying there are other means and ways of having people to comply. First of all, I think it is necessary that we find out what the fundamental reason for not complying is, and if that through negotiations and compromise, a deal can be struck, conditions can be arrived at that will permit the defaulter to make the payments, and that the government will be able to get the remittances, and the individual will be able to meet the commitments.
Okay, what I want to ask is, those penalties outlined in the draft, in the context of the 12 laws that were already in existence, are there any new penalties being proposed, or more stringent penalties
there are more stringent
proposed in that draft?
There are more stringent penalties being proposed, and there are draconian penalties that were removed that have been proposed to be replaced or to return. And we are against this because we are looking at the increase in some of the penalties, for example. We are looking at the increase in the way the interest will be administered. We are looking at the fact that we are now going to replace the travel restrictions. All of those are of concern to us, and of course, very stringent, very draconian as well is the proposal to forfeit or seize properties of St. Lucians who are unable to make the tax payments. I do not think that is the way to go. If anything, a government should encourage property ownership in this country and not take measures that would deny or deprive people of property ownership.
Miriam Montu, DBS Television. In the new draft, we see a lot of power being given to one person as the controller. What's your view on all this new power being given to this one single person as opposed to distributed amongst, let's say, a board?
Well, there is always a risk, because you can find a situation where an individual may abuse his or her authority, and so I think that might be a matter that we wish to look at as well. And I'm happy that the Bar Association is taking a serious look at what is being recommended, and we're hoping that those, especially with the legal minds, because we as a party will be consulting with legally trained people to review and examine the taxes. We'll be looking at professionals such as accountants and people in finance to ensure that, again, we do not want too much power to be given to any individual. And you see, there's a risk, especially with a government that is inclined to abuse authority and power and to be partisan, that they can appoint an individual that will serve their purposes and interests, and to the detriment of individuals. And so, to the extent that you have the power spread across a number of people, it is always better. You have more objectivity and more transparency. And so I think that is something that has to be looked at. And the United Workers' Party certainly will be considering all of this as we look at the terms and conditions and recommendations being made.
My question is to Mr. President. You spoke about warnings being issued to foreign nationals visiting our shores.
Come across.
You spoke about warnings being issued to foreign nationals visiting our shores. I know for a fact that the French consulate has issued a warning to their nationals living here.
Yes.
Especially after the death of Eric Hines.
Yes.
Has there been warnings from any other overseas jurisdiction?
There constantly have been. And if you monitor some of the leading areas like Canada, like the US, like Britain and France and so forth, they're pretty worried about what is happening here in this country. And I'm saying if we already have problems with these people, with these nations that are starting to worry about us, how do you grow the tourism product? You're basically killing it. And what new nation can you add on to it when those existing nations are starting to express dissatisfaction with what politics, and to try to do the blame game as opposed to fixing it, then we're in trouble. People did not remove our government to place the Labour Party in power to don't offer solutions. They expected solutions because this is what the Labour Party told them they would do if given another chance at government. So the onus again is on the St. Lucia Labour Party to ensure that it delivers on its promises of change in this country. And unless they can do that, I say to them, turn over the leadership of the country to the United Workers' Party, because perhaps we are better at it, and we've proven that we've been better at it for many years in the history of this country. This year we're celebrating 60 years of United Workers' Party formation. Our anniversary, 60 years. And guess what? If you look at this country compared to when we were in office over the period of 60 years, and compared to when the St. Lucia Labour Party have been in office, we've done a far better job than the St. Lucia Labour Party can ever imagine that they could do. And during the course of this year, when we will try to showcase the accomplishments of the United Workers' Party over the 60 years, and also covering the parts of crime. Because if you really look at crime, it's from 1979, 1977, 1979, we started becoming a violent, very, very violent nation. Who did that? The St. Lucia Labour Party. They were the ones who were arming young people with guns so that they can carry out a revolution to overthrow the United Workers' Party of John Compton. So the proliferation of guns on our streets, they are responsible for that. And so if they need to start the process of cleaning up, because at the end of the day, children learn what they are taught. And if you did not introduce guns and violence in this country during the 1979 elections and prior to that, maybe this country would have been a better country.
Mr. President, statistics.
Yes.
The Soufriere Regional Foundation. You said to date a total of 50 people have been sent home.
Almost.
And the reason given for those terminations were?
The recent terminations was a reassessment of the productivity and efficiency And the other terminations last year in 2021 was about reducing cost.
Are you privy to whether or not there has been any reduction in cost at the foundation?
No, I am not privy to that information, but what I can tell you is that when we came into office in 2016, the revenue generated by the foundation was a little less than $4 million annually. And when we looked at the potential of the park and the sites, the attractions which they manage, we felt that there was great need to rehabilitate, refurbish, to do additional works to increase revenue. And hence the reason we were able to build additional pools at the Sulphur Springs Park, fixed up damage infrastructure and so on, increase the admission fees to the pools and the touring area, and also increase the fees at the Grupiton Trail. And in 2019, which was a bumper year for us in tourism in numbers, we were able to generate revenue of almost $9 million from what the foundation was earning in 2017, 2018, and prior to us coming into office. Between 2011 and 2016, we were able to gross almost $9 million. And again, you have to remember that the Soufriere Foundation's revenue in its entirety comes from tourism. The jetties is when persons disembark on the jetties from the catamarans, the boats, the water taxis, the yachts, they pay a fee. Persons entering the Sulphur Springs Park, they pay a fee. Persons hiking the Grupiton, they pay a fee. Persons using the washrooms at the comfort centers of the Hummingbird Beach Park, the one in the town and the one at the top of the viewing point at Colobet, they pay a fee. So and they have a radio station where persons advertise and they pay a fee as well. So all of the revenue, 99.5%, comes from tourism. And as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, there was a major reduction in revenue. But yet still we were able to manage the affairs of the organization and not to lay off or fire any of the staff. Work with them, persons who were getting 2 days, 3 days work, persons who got paid for 10 days, 12 days, 15 days for the month, until things would have gotten better. And hence the reason why as a government we felt tourism had to be our top priority to reopen the country, work with the airlines, work with the agencies, work with the hotels, the cruise ships, to bring back tourism so that people could get back to work and money could start circulating and livelihoods could have been protected. So I know the numbers have gone up considerably in terms of visitors coming to the park since the COVID era, and I am assuming the executive chairman has been boasting, and as well as the parliamentary rep, that the foundation's accounts have gotten back to where it was and so on. So I'm guessing that the revenue is there, the numbers are there, and if we went through such a difficult period in 2019, in 2020, into 2021, without laying off, terminating persons, where the revenue was almost zero, why now when revenue has gone up substantially, you are laying off, you are terminating almost 50 persons, and you are putting back your own people in positions. Why now? Okay. And I'm talking about the young persons, young persons who started construction of the little homes. They're single mothers, nobody to help, nobody to care for them. But the little job, and these are persons, their salary was a mere $1,500, $1,700 a month. And you put them on the breadline. In a matter of minutes, arriving at work, getting a call, come to the office and getting a letter. So that has been vindictive. That has been merciless, crude, evil, wickedness by the St. Lucia Labour Party, by the executive chairman of the Soufriere Development Foundation. And as a people, as a country, we need to stand up against this kind of behavior, and we need to demand better governance by persons who represent us and by persons who are placed in such positions in premier organizations like the Soufriere Foundation.
So you said that some of the terminated people have been replaced. Have they all been replaced, or it's just a small number?
Not all of them have been replaced, but quite a few of them have been replaced. And some of them, the following day, a few days after, they were laid off or terminated, they were replaced. So at the end of the day, they have not created any additional sustainable employment. They have just removed what they found, and they are just replacing them with their own. That is exactly what they're doing. Affirmative action, remove UWPs, perceive UWPs, and make way for the Social Labour Party and some others. That is what it is.
Have you sought any kind of dialogue with the executive chairman to probably try to resolve whatever issues they have, or to get more information about?
He would not even look at me. So I don't see this happening. I don't think so. I'm willing to sit with him. I'm willing to sit with the parliamentary representative in the interest of Soufriere, in the interest of the people of Soufriere Concession. Because I am a Soufriere man. I want what is best for Soufriere, what is best for the people of Soufriere, especially the single mothers, the young people, and when their livelihoods are threatened, I need to stand up and speak on their behalf. So if it means that I have to sit down with the parliamentary rep, with the government, with the board of directors of the Soufriere Foundation on behalf of the people of Soufriere, I am going to do it, if that's what it is. But with what is going on there, what has happened from 2021 until today, I believe the best thing, what is more prudent to be done to restore confidence in the organization, is for the resignation of the executive chairman in order for us to move in a new direction.
Soufriere GPDC, what are your views on the global portfolio deal and how it affects solutions? How it affects solutions?
GBH?
Yes.
Well, I've spoken about it before, especially the Soufriere aspect of the GBH deal. Up to a deal like today, we are still in the darkness. We do not know much about the GBH deal in Soufriere, what it really entails, the persons who are going to be affected, what level of discussion have they had with those persons, the fishermen, even the Soufriere Foundation, which manages the docks, and they've got wardens, they've got securities, they've got cashiers on the docks. What is going to become of the revenue being collected right now? What is going to happen to those employees? What is going to be happening to the people at Barron's Drive? Whether they're going to be relocated, whether the yachts, the berthing structures they have there is going to be replaced. The Hummingbird Beach, from what the fancy drawings we saw, the GBH development is going to go all the way down to the Hummingbird Beach. Are they going to break down the beach park? If not, and whatever they're going to be placing there, are they going to be getting rid of the concessionaires who are there right now? Nothing, you know. So there is nothing forthcoming. There's only speculation, and we, as an opposition, we are demanding more answers from the government, especially the parliamentary representative of Soufriere Concession, as she quoted that it was a secret deal. We want to know what is in that secret deal for the people of Soufriere Concession. But up to now, we have not been able to get any form of clarity, any form of answers, so that the people can know how this is going to affect their lives and their livelihoods.
Thank you.
Good?
Yes. Thank you so much.
If there are no more questions, I would like to thank the members of the media who were present. I'd like to thank you for transmitting our message live. I'd like to thank all of those who are listening to us live around St. Lucia and in the diaspora. And we ask that you stay tuned as we, as a diligent opposition, will continue to stay on top of the issues. I just want to mention that next week we will see the return of the round table, where some of those issues will be deliberated upon more extensively, and you will be hearing from us as we come up with our own positions on the make our policy statements. And of course, during the course of this year, you will also be hearing from the United Workers' Party as far as our moves to put in place our candidates for the next general election, whenever it is called, between now and 2026. I want to thank you once again, and look forward to working with you harmoniously in 2021. Thank you.